They say the loudest lessons are learned in silence. But for 17-year-old Marcus Ellis, silence wasn't strength. It was camouflage. Every morning, the sound of wealth echoed down the street, engines humming, car doors slamming, parents in business suits waving from luxury SUVs. Marcus watched them through the misty bus stop window, earbuds in, pretending not to care. He waited until the last car disappeared before starting his walk, hood up, backpack slung low, steps timed to miss the moment his father's old pickup rattled by on its way to the same destination, East Ridge High School. Because Samuel Ellis didn't wear a tie. He wore a navy blue uniform that smelled faintly of pine cleaner and hope. And on his chest, in faded white thread, were the words, Custodial Services. That was Marcus's secret. His father was the janitor. The halls of East Ridge gleamed every morning, waxed floors catching sunlight like glass. No one thought about who made them shine, and that was fine by Samuel. He worked quietly, humming old gospel songs, greeting teachers with a nod, never asking for praise. But Marcus couldn't stand it. In the locker-lined jungle of teenage hierarchy, image was everything. And image didn't include a dad pushing a mop bucket. When Samuel called down the hallway, "Morning, son," Marcus pretended not to hear. When friends asked why the janitor always smiled at him, he shrugged. Man, he's just friendly to everybody. At lunch, the ritual humiliation began again. Parents. Always parents. My mom's a doctor. My dad runs a tech company. Even the kids who weren't rich had stories soaked in pride. Then came the question Marcus dreaded. What about you, Marcus? What's your dad do? He forced the same grin he'd practiced in the mirror. He works for the city. Management or something. A harmless lie, he told himself. Something small. Something that would keep the laughter away. They nodded, impressed. Nice. City gig, solid money. And just like that, the lie worked. The laughter never came. But neither did peace. That evening, Marcus came home to the rhythm of a mop sloshing in a bucket. The scent of disinfectant drifted through the small house like a ghost. Samuel stood in the kitchen, still in uniform, wiping counters that were already clean. Hey, champ, he said with that weary smile. How was school? Marcus muttered, fine. Samuel nodded, tired eyes soft with pride. You know, they gave me extra hours this week. Means a little more for your college savings. He pulled a folded pay stub from his pocket, smoothed it with care, and slipped it into an old cookie tin labeled Marcus Fund. Marcus looked away. He hated that tin. It was a reminder that every dollar in his future came from his father's calloused hands. He mumbled, cool, and went to his room, shutting the door before the guilt caught up. That night he scrolled through social media, pictures of classmates posing beside shiny cars and proud parents in crisp clothes. Then he saw it, a photo tagged #myhero, one kid hugging his firefighter dad. The comments flooded with hearts and applause. Marcus stared at the screen until it blurred. He could post that too. He should be able to. But how do you tell the world your hero wears a janitor's badge? He threw his phone down and pressed his palms over his face. Why couldn't Dad have done something bigger, he whispered. Outside, headlights swept across the curtains. His father's truck pulled into the driveway, another double shift finished. Through the thin walls, Marcus heard the front door creak, boots unlacing, the soft exhale of exhaustion. Then silence. Then silence. Except for a quiet hum. The same song Samuel always sang when life hurt too much. It's a mighty long road, but my child's gonna make it. Marcus lay awake, staring at the ceiling, tears he refused to acknowledge stinging his eyes. He told himself the lie again, I'm not embarrassed, I just don't want people judging him. But the truth was sharper, he was judging him himself. The next morning came too fast. Marcus grabbed his backpack and bolted out before sunrise. He crossed paths with his father in the driveway. Samuel lifted a thermos in greeting. "Morning, son. Want a ride?" Marcus tightened his strap. "Nah, I'm walking. Need the exercise." Samuel chuckled softly. "All right. See you there." His voice was gentle, always gentle, even when Marcus's was not. As the old truck rumbled away, Marcus kicked a pebble down the road. The lie felt heavier every day. He didn't see his father stop a block later to help a teacher change a flat tire. Didn't see him wipe grease off his hands and still clock in on time. Didn't see the way every staff member greeted him with respect Marcus thought he didn't have. At school, one of the teachers pulled Marcus aside. "Your father helped repair the gym lights last night. You should be proud, he saved the school thousands." Marcus forced a polite nod, but inside he crumbled. Pride was exactly what he felt, but it was buried under layers of shame he didn't know how to peel away. That afternoon, while his father swept confetti off the bleachers from the senior pep rally, Marcus walked past him again. Samuel looked up and smiled, sweat glistening under fluorescent light. "Have a good practice, son." Marcus hesitated, maybe he'd say something this time. But a teammate jogged by and clapped him on the shoulder. "Yo, hurry up, man." And the moment slipped away. Marcus turned, pretending not to hear. But for the first time, he felt the silence between them, heavy, aching, loud enough to echo through the hall. Underscore 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 underscore. He didn't know it yet, but that silence was about to speak louder than every cheer, every laugh, every lie he'd ever told. Because the same hands he was ashamed of, the ones gripping that mop and polishing those floors, were quietly building something far greater than pride. A legacy. And soon, the whole world would know his father's name. The following week, the air around East Ridge High buzzed with pre-graduation energy, seniors half studying, half dreaming about freedom. But Marcus carried a weight he couldn't name. Every joke, every brag, every lie now echoed inside him like footsteps in an empty hall. He told himself he'd come clean soon. Maybe after exams. Maybe when nobody cared anymore. But shame never waits for perfect timing, it finds you when your guard is down. After basketball practice one humid Friday, Marcus lingered near the lockers, towel draped over his shoulder, sneakers squeaking against the waxed floor, his father's floor. Coach dismissed the team, and music thumped from a speaker as boys cracked jokes. "Man, my mom's taking me to Cancun after finals," one bragged. Another flexed, "My dad got us season tickets, courtside." Laughter bounced off the walls. Then a voice turned the spotlight. "Yo Marcus," Jamal grinned, "your old man's still doing that city management gig? Big money, right?" Marcus nodded, forcing his practiced grin. Yeah, keeps him busy." The door to the hall creaked open. The room fell quiet. A mop squeaked once across the tiles. There he was, Samuel Ellis, cap low, uniform crisp, the name patch catching the fluorescent light. He was humming softly, the same gospel tune Marcus heard every night at home. "Evenin', fellas," Samuel said kindly. "Just need to grab these bins." No one responded. Jamal smirked. Another boy snickered under his breath. Marcus's heart pounded. He wanted to disappear. Then someone muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Yo Marcus, that your dad or what?" Samuel looked up, a hopeful spark in his eyes. For a split second, Marcus could have said yes, proud, simple, true. But fear twisted his tongue. He laughed instead. "Nah, man. Just one of the janitors here." The word sliced through the room like a knife. His father froze. The bin lid clattered shut. He nodded once, quietly, then wheeled the cart away. The mop's squeak faded down the hall. Jamal burst out laughing. "Bro, I swear he looked just like you." Marcus forced a laugh too, but his stomach churned. When the door swung closed, guilt roared louder than their music. That night the house was dim. Only the hum of the fridge filled the air. Samuel's truck wasn't in the driveway, he'd taken an extra shift. Marcus sat at the kitchen table staring at the cookie tin marked Marcus Fund. He lifted the lid. Inside were pay stubs, each one folded with neat precision, months of labor turned into paper hope. He whispered to himself, "I said it to survive. I didn't mean it." But excuses sound hollow when the person you hurt doesn't know you're sorry. The door finally opened near midnight. Samuel stepped in quietly, boots muddy, eyes heavy. "Hey, champ. You still up?" Marcus nodded, guilt crawling up his throat. "Yeah. Couldn't sleep." His father smiled, setting down his lunch pail. They added extra cleanup after the pep rally. Place was a mess. But hey, overtime's overtime. He poured himself coffee though the clock read 12:15 a.m. Marcus wanted to say the truth, to confess, to apologize, but fear held him prisoner. Samuel leaned against the counter. "Your coach says you're doing good. Real proud of you, son." He patted Marcus's shoulder, then added softly. "You know, pride's a funny thing. It can build you up, or build a wall between you and the people who love you." Marcus froze. Did he know? Samuel didn't look angry, just sad, like a man who'd already forgiven something unspoken. Before Marcus could answer, his father smiled again, gentle as ever. "Get some rest. Big week coming up." Then he disappeared down the hallway, humming the same tune as always. Monday morning. Marcus walked through the hall that gleamed with his father's reflection. Every footprint vanished seconds after he passed, as if the floors themselves refused to keep his shame. Whispers followed him. "Yo, is it true that Janitor's your dad?" He ignored them, but rumor spreads faster than truth. By lunch, even his best friend looked uncomfortable. "Look, man, people are talking," Jamal said quietly. "If that's really your pops, no shame in it, bro." Marcus snapped, "Drop it, alright?" Jamal raised his hands. "Chill. I'm just saying, he seems like a good dude." Marcus stormed out before guilt could turn to tears. Outside, he saw his father sweeping the courtyard, slow and steady under the spring sun. Each motion graceful, practiced, almost sacred. And for the first time, Marcus noticed something he'd missed his whole life. Everyone respected him. Teachers nodded. Students greeted him with smiles. Even the principal stopped to shake his hand. Marcus ducked behind a pillar, ashamed, not of his father, but of himself. That evening, as the sky blushed orange, Marcus heard soft humming again. He peeked into the garage. His father sat on an old stool, polishing his mop handle like it was gold. "You don't have to do that, Dad," Marcus said quietly. Samuel chuckled. "A clean tool makes clean work." Then he looked up, eyes warm but tired. "Marcus, you ever wonder why I never complain about my job?" Marcus shrugged. "I guess you just don't mind it." His father smiled faintly. "I mind it plenty. But it's honest work. Every floor I clean is one less kid slipping, one less parent worrying. Some people chase glory. I chase peace." He paused, studying his son's face. "Never let pride make you small, son. The world already tries hard enough to do that to men like us." The words landed deep, heavier than any lecture. Marcus swallowed hard. Yeah. I'll remember that. But Samuel's eyes lingered, knowing more than Marcus could admit. Later that night, Marcus lay awake replaying every second of the locker room scene. The laughter. The denial. The look in his father's eyes. He finally understood what silence really sounded like, not peace, but absence. The absence of pride. The absence of truth. The absence of connection between a father who gave everything and a son too afraid to claim him. He turned on the lamp and opened his notebook. On the first blank page, he wrote one sentence. "I'm proud of my dad." Then, under it, "Tomorrow, I'll say it out loud." He didn't know the universe had already planned a louder way for the truth to be heard. One that would echo through every hallway of East Ridge High. Etched not in words, but in stone. Great. Here's section 3, the lesson behind the mop, written in the same cinematic, voiceover-friendly style as the first two parts. It begins right where you left off, Marcus's decision to face the truth, and carries the emotional weight toward the story's turning point. Morning light crept through Marcus's blinds like a quiet invitation. He hadn't slept much. The note he'd written, "I'm proud of my dad," still lay on his desk. The words stared back at him, daring him to live them. He grabbed his backpack, stuffed the note inside, and walked out before his courage could fade. Outside, the air smelled of fresh rain and soap, his father's scent, carried from the truck idling in the driveway. Samuel leaned out the window. "Need a ride today, champ?" Marcus hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, I do." For the first time in months, they rode together in silence that didn't feel heavy, it felt like possibility. The truck rattled and hummed down the street, gospel radio whispering between static. Samuel tapped the steering wheel to the beat. "Big week ahead, huh? Graduation's around the corner." "Yeah," Marcus said quietly. His hands clenched on his backpack straps. He wanted to say "I'm sorry" right then, but the words tangled like knots in his throat. They parked behind the school. Samuel grabbed his supply cart. Marcus stepped out and watched him for a long moment. Those same calloused hands adjusted the mop handle with the care of a craftsman preparing his tools. There was pride in every motion. Marcus saw it now, the quiet dignity that came from doing something well, no matter how small it seemed. That afternoon, Marcus waited until everyone left. He walked through the echoing hallways, empty lockers, flickering lights, and followed the faint sound of humming. It led him to the gym. There was his father, working under the bleachers, polishing the floors until they reflected the banners above. The man moved like he was painting a masterpiece. Sweat shimmered on his forehead, but his expression was calm, almost peaceful. Marcus stood in the doorway, transfixed. He remembered every moment he'd pretended not to see him, every time he'd looked away. Now he couldn't look anywhere else. "Dad," he called softly. Samuel turned, surprised but smiling. "Well, look who's still here. Practice run long?" Marcus shook his head. "No. I just wanted to help." Samuel chuckled. "Help? Son, I've been doing this 20 years. You sure you're ready to join the crew?" Marcus nodded. "I want to learn." His father studied him for a moment, then handed over the spare mop. "All right. Long strokes. Don't rush it. Let the water do half the work." The first few passes were awkward. Marcus splashed more than he cleaned. But Samuel didn't laugh, he guided him gently, step by step, until they found a rhythm. Back and forth. Side to side. The quiet swoosh of mops became a heartbeat in the room. As they worked, Samuel spoke, not lecturing, just thinking aloud. "You know, when I started here, this floor had cracks everywhere. Kids used to trip on it. Took months of patching, sanding, sealing. But when it finally shined, I felt proud. Not because it was perfect, but because it meant people could walk safely. Marcus glanced up. That's how you see your job? Samuel smiled. That's how I see my purpose. Every job has one, you just have to find the meaning in it. The word settled over Marcus like warm sunlight. Maybe success wasn't about titles or money. Maybe it was about the way you serve others, even when nobody's looking. When they finished, Samuel leaned on his mop, stretching his back. Not bad, son. You've got a decent shine going. Marcus laughed softly. Guess I had a good teacher. Then his smile faded. Dad, there's something I need to tell you. Samuel looked up, curious but patient. At practice last week, Marcus began, voice shaking, the guys saw you cleaning the gym. They asked if you were my dad and I said no. The air stilled. Only the faint hum of the lights filled the silence. Samuel's shoulders lowered a little, but his face stayed calm. I figured, he said quietly. Didn't want to embarrass you. Marcus's eyes burned. I'm sorry, Dad. I was stupid. I cared too much about what people thought. I didn't want them to laugh at me. Samuel wiped his hands on his uniform, then stepped closer. Son, people will always find something to laugh at. But you can't let their noise drown out your truth. He placed a rough hand on Marcus's shoulder. I've been laughed at plenty. But I never let it stop me from being proud of who I am, or who you are. Marcus nodded, tears spilling. I don't deserve that kind of grace. Samuel smiled faintly. You're my boy. You don't have to deserve it, you just have to learn from it. Then he handed Marcus a rag. Now grab that bucket. We're not done yet. They cleaned in silence for a while. This time, the silence felt like forgiveness. Later, as they locked up the gym, Samuel paused by the new science wing still under construction. Wood beams framed the space where glass doors would soon gleam. He stared at it for a long moment. You see this place, he said. I've been saving a little from each paycheck to help them finish it. It's for the next generation. Kids like you who'll dream bigger than their parents. Marcus blinked. You donated to the new building? Samuel nodded modestly. Just a small part. Nothing fancy. But every bit counts. He chuckled. One day you'll walk through here and won't even remember who cleaned it. That's all right. Legacy isn't about being remembered, it's about making something that lasts. Marcus stared at the beams, imagining them shining one day, imagining the plaque that would hang somewhere on that wall. He didn't know how right his father's words would become. When they got home, Marcus set the cookie tin on the table. Dad, I saw what's in here. You don't have to keep doing this for me. Samuel smiled. Of course I do. That's what fathers do, they build paths their sons can walk on. Marcus shook his head. I want to earn my own way. But I also want to make you proud. Samuel's eyes softened. You already did. Tonight. They sat together in the kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator replacing the silence that once divided them. Outside, the moonlight glinted off Samuel's truck, parked crooked but steady, just like the man himself. That night Marcus wrote a new note in his notebook. Greatness doesn't come from who watches you, it comes from what you do when no one's watching. He didn't know the universe was already preparing to prove it. That in just a few days, those same hallways he used to walk in shame would echo with applause for the man who swept them clean. Graduation morning dawned bright and gold, one of those days that felt bigger than the sky itself. Parents filled the parking lot in polished cars, teachers carried bouquets, and students floated in a haze of relief and nerves. Marcus adjusted his cap in the mirror, his stomach twisted in knots. He'd spent the week helping his dad clean the gym, talking more in those few nights than in the entire past year. Now, he wanted to make him proud. He just didn't know how. In the kitchen, Samuel stood by the door, uniform pressed, boots shining. He wasn't attending the ceremony as a guest, he was working it. Tables needed wiping, trash bins needed lining, and the floor had to gleam one last time for the class of East Ridge High. "You sure you don't want to sit with the parents?" Marcus asked softly. Samuel smiled. "Nah, I'll get my view from the back. Don't you worry, I'll still see you cross that stage." Marcus nodded, fighting back emotion. "Thanks, Dad. For everything." Samuel gave his usual, quiet grin. "Go make your name mean something, son." The gymnasium had never looked better. Rows of white chairs sparkled under string lights. The bleachers overflowed with cheering families, the air thick with perfume, flowers, and anticipation. Marcus found his seat among hundreds of blue gowns and matching caps. As the band played, he spotted his father in the distance, standing near the janitor's cart by the exit. He looked calm, watching the students like a proud guardian nobody noticed. The principal stepped to the microphone. "Good afternoon, parents, teachers, and the graduating class of East Ridge High." The audience erupted in applause. Then, after the standard speeches and congratulations, the principal cleared his throat. "Before we present diplomas," he said, "our school board would like to share something special, a dedication that's been years in the making." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Marcus frowned. He hadn't heard anything about a dedication. The principal continued. "For over 2 decades, one man has worked quietly behind the scenes of this school. He's been here longer than most of us, cleaning classrooms, repairing lights, volunteering overtime, and donating parts of his paycheck to projects that help shape East Ridge into what it is today." Marcus's breath caught. He looked up, something in the principal's voice felt familiar. Warm. Heavy with gratitude. Two teachers stepped forward, pulling a rope. A large curtain on the far wall slid open. Behind it gleamed a plaque, newly mounted, glinting under the stage lights. The gold letters burned bright against polished black marble. The Samuel Ellis Science and Technology Wing. In honor of a man whose hands built more than walls, they built futures. The room went silent for half a heartbeat, then thundered with applause. The sound hit Marcus like a wave. Students stood, parents cheered, teachers wiped their eyes. Everyone turned to the back of the gym, where Samuel stood frozen. Hands still on his mop handle, jaw slack, eyes wide in disbelief. He tried to take a step forward but couldn't. It was as if years of invisible work had suddenly become too heavy to carry. The principal gestured toward him. "Mr. Ellis, would you please join us?" Every eye followed him as he walked down the aisle, slow, hesitant, overwhelmed. For once, the man everyone passed by without a glance became the center of the world. Marcus felt his chest ache. That was his dad, the same man he once denied. Now, the same crowd that might have mocked a janitor was giving him a standing ovation. Samuel reached the stage, blinking back tears. The principal shook his hand. "Sir, this school wouldn't be what it is without you." A photographer snapped pictures. Reporters scribbled notes. Students chanted his name, "Mr. Ellis. Mr. Ellis." And somewhere in that roar, Marcus finally stood. He didn't even realize he was crying until the tears blurred his vision. He pushed past his row, walked to the stage, and wrapped his father in a hug. Gasps rippled through the audience, then applause erupted louder than before. "Dad," Marcus whispered, voice trembling. "I lied about you. I said you weren't my father. But you are, and I've never been prouder of anyone in my life." Samuel squeezed him tight. "It's all right, son. You don't owe me pride. Just promise me you'll live with the same honesty you found today." Marcus nodded, crying into his father's shoulder. "I will." When the noise settled, the principal leaned toward the mic again. "Mr. Ellis, would you like to say a few words?" Samuel hesitated. Public speaking wasn't his comfort zone. But the moment felt bigger than nerves. He took the microphone, voice soft but clear. "I never expected this. I just came to do my job. I've cleaned these halls for 20 years, but the truth is, every time I wiped away the dust, I saw potential shining underneath. You kids, you teachers, you're the reason I came back every day." He paused, scanning the crowd, his eyes landing on Marcus. "My son once asked me why I never wanted a better job. I told him, I already have the best one. I get to make sure the next generation can walk safely into their future." The gym fell silent except for quiet sniffles. Then the applause rose again, longer, louder, unending. When the ceremony ended, students crowded Samuel with hugs, selfies, and thank yous. Marcus watched, overwhelmed, as his father laughed shyly, shaking hands like a local hero. Reporters asked for quotes. The school board handed him a certificate of recognition. And through it all, Samuel's words stayed humble. "I just did my part," he kept saying. "That's all any of us can do." Outside, the afternoon sun poured gold across the plaque. Marcus traced his fingers over the letters, ELLS, each one carved deep and permanent. He turned to his father. "Guess you got your name on the building after all." Samuel chuckled, eyes shining. "Didn't need it. But it's nice to know the floors I cleaned will hold something that lasts." Marcus smiled, voice breaking. "Dad, they don't just hold something. They hold me." Samuel put a hand on his shoulder. "That's all I ever wanted, son." They stood there together, janitor and graduate. Both realizing that real success isn't measured by the job title on your chest, but by the respect written on the hearts of those who finally see you. The next morning, sunlight spilled across the new Ellis Science and Technology wing, turning its glass windows into mirrors that caught every ray of hope. The smell of fresh paint and new beginnings drifted through the halls. Samuel Ellis arrived early, as he always did. Old habits die slow. Even heroes, it seemed, still checked the floors before anyone else walked on them. He ran a hand over the brass plaque with his name etched deep in it, still not believing it was real. The letters gleamed like polished stars. He whispered to himself. "Guess the good Lord wanted me to leave more than footprints." Behind him came the sound of sneakers on tile. Marcus appeared, wearing jeans and a volunteer badge. Graduation gown gone, but pride still shining in his eyes. "Couldn't stay away, huh?" his father teased. Marcus grinned. "Maybe I just came to make sure the new wing's janitor knows what he's doing." They laughed, really laughed, the kind of laugh that comes only after truth finally breaks through years of silence. As weeks passed, something quietly shifted in the school. Students who once rushed past the custodial room now stopped to say hello. Teachers began leaving thank you notes taped to the door. And whenever someone dropped a wrapper or spilled a drink, another student would say, "Don't make Mr. Ellis clean that up. Show some respect." It was as if the entire building had learned what Marcus had. That respect doesn't start at the top of the ladder, it starts with who keeps the ladder standing. Even the principal noticed. He had Samuel speak at orientation that fall. Standing behind the same microphone where he once swept floors, Samuel said, "I used to think my job was just to clean this school. Turns out, my job was to remind everyone that every role here matters." The applause was softer than graduation's roar, but it reached deeper. It was the sound of a school transformed. Marcus began volunteering 3 times a week at the science wing his father helped fund. He tutored freshmen, repaired lab tables, even helped paint murals of scientists who looked like them. Underneath one, he wrote in small letters, "Built by hands that never gave up." When he left for college that fall, he carried with him more than textbooks. He carried his father's wisdom. That legacy isn't what people remember about you. It's what they feel because of you. At orientation, when new friends asked about his family, Marcus smiled easily. "My dad's a janitor," he said proudly. "But he also has a building named after him." "What about yours?" They laughed, impressed. And for the first time, the truth tasted better than any lie he'd ever told. Months later, Marcus came home for Thanksgiving break. He found his father in the same place as always, finishing a shift, humming that same gospel tune. Only now, there was something different in his voice. It wasn't tired. It was content. Marcus waited by the doorway until his dad looked up. "Still working overtime?" he asked. Samuel shrugged. "Just making sure the legacy stays shiny." He winked. "You know how dust likes to come back." Marcus walked over and handed him an envelope. Inside was a photo, father and son standing beneath the plaque, smiling. And behind them the words "The Ellis Wing" gleaming in sunlight. Below it, a handwritten note. "To the man who built this place and the man I hope to become." Samuel's hands trembled as he held it. He didn't say anything at first. Then, quietly, "You already became him, son." Years passed. Marcus graduated college, became a teacher, then an engineer. He built things, bridges, solar grids, classrooms, but nothing ever meant more than the building with his father's name. Every holiday, he came back to East Ridge. Every visit, he'd walk through the main doors, pause by the plaque, and watch his reflection beside those golden letters. Sometimes, students would walk by and whisper, "That's Mr. Ellis's son." And Marcus would smile. Because that title, Mr. Ellis's son, was the highest honor he could ever earn. When Samuel retired, the school threw a small ceremony. No TV cameras this time, no flashing lights, just teachers, students, and families who'd grown up admiring him. He gave one last speech, simple and pure. "All I ever wanted was to leave this world cleaner than I found it. Turns out, I didn't just clean floors. I cleaned hearts, starting with my own." He turned to Marcus, eyes glistening. "And that's all any of us can hope for." The crowd rose in applause once again. But this time, Samuel didn't look overwhelmed. He just looked proud. Proud of the work. Proud of the journey. Proud of his son. Long after Samuel's retirement, students still touched the plaque for good luck before exams. Custodians told new hires, "You're walking in the footsteps of a legend." And every once in a while, a parent would ask about the name on the wall. The principal would smile and say, "He was a janitor." But more than that, he was proof that greatness can wear work boots. On the anniversary of the dedication, Marcus visited again. He stood before the building, sunlight washing over him, and whispered the same words his father once did. "Guess the good Lord wanted us to leave more than footprints." He turned to go, leaving the echo of his father's song behind him. The soft hum that once filled empty halls, now filling the whole campus. Because in the end, Samuel Ellis didn't just build a wing. He built a man. He built a son who would carry his name, his lessons, and his light forever.